All right, Kamado fans. Some years ago, we talked about smoking a chuck roll as opposed to a brisket or a pork shoulder. It was a pretty popular topic of discussion. I haven't been on the forum that much lately. I don't know if y'all are still talking about it that much, but now, finally, all these years later, I decided to go ahead and do one. At least I think it's a chuck roll. This thing was labeled at the grocery store as a shoulder clod, flat iron removed. I'm pretty sure it's a chuck roll. It's a big old huge piece of meat, kind of like a brisket. And there it is. I'm just going to show it for a minute because I want to put the lid back down. But anyway, that's the shoulder clod, which I think is a chuck roll. Well, anyway, I'm on this email list with this guy, the Barbecue Bible, Stephen Raishlin. I guess most of y'all know that guy. And he had an email a few days ago about Jamaican jerk brisket. So when I went to the store to get the brisket, I saw the shoulder clod and decided I'll do that instead. So I got some jerk seasoning, and before I put the seasoning on the meat, I took this contraption. It's a tenderizer thing. I don't know how well it's showing up there on the video. Anyway, I just beat the living daylights out of that meat with this thing, with all those blades, after I put the jerk on it. And then for good measure, I went ahead and stabbed it with a Rapala fillet knife and an ice pick to get some of the rub down in there and also break up some of the meat fibers, tenderize it. And I let that rub sit on there overnight in the refrigerator for about 24 hours. I did that about 24 hours ago. I just put this thing on a few minutes ago. So you can see the cooker there's running about 220 or something like that. All I do on these low and slow cooks is just try to keep it below 300, anywhere between 200 and 300. I've noticed if you do a hot and fast and you're not careful, you can kind of scorch the outside of your meat. So I'm not doing my hot and fast quite as hot. And actually this one's not going to be a hot and fast anyway. I'm just going to do it low and slow the whole time. But I'll do it like a brisket. When that internal temp hits 165, I'll pull this thing off and I'll wrap it in butcher paper and put it back on there. And then I'm not sure how I'm going to finish it. I might finish it like a brisket where every half hour after I wrap it in paper, I poke it every half hour with an ice pick till the ice pick goes in like butter. That's the tenderness test. But Franklin, he does it by temperature. I think he takes his briskets up to 203 degrees, if I'm not mistaken, and then he pulls them off. But I'll kind of probe it, and when it's real tender, I'll see if it's about 203, see if it jives with, Franklin's technique. But I'll show you the result of this after it's all done. All right, I've had this shoulder clod, which I think is a chuck roll, smoking for about 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and take it off and wrap it in butcher paper and put it back on the fire. Let's see what it looks like. That looks pretty good. We'll get that thing off, wrap it in butcher paper, get it back on the fire. All right, there it is, wrapped in butcher paper. Not that interesting. Back on the fire. I'll probe that every 30 minutes with an ice pick. And I might put a temperature probe in there every so often also. I managed to keep it Oh, running about 250, 260 most of the time so far. Now that it's in paper, I may just bump it up to about 300 for the duration. All right, here's the finished product of the shoulder clod smoke. I smoked this thing for about 2 hours in the smoke. Then I wrapped it in butcher paper and finished it off 5 hours later. So that's a 7-hour total. And I looked up shoulder clod on the internet between video takes and found out it's not a chuck roll. It's part of the chuck primal. It's called a subprimal. The chuck roll and the shoulder clod are two separate pieces that come off the chuck. It feels pretty firm. I smoked it probably between 230 degrees and 280 the whole time. The outer portions might be a little overdone. We're going to find out here. Let's see what happens. Look at that. How's that look to you? So you can see the juice squeezing out there on the surface maybe if it shows on the video. So this little tip was sticking out on the end here and wasn't fully in contact with the meat, so it should be pretty overdone, and it's really not that overdone. In fact, that's really pretty tender, just to me tearing it apart with my fingers. Let's see how it tastes. Wow. I've never done this before, and it's really, really good. That's a shoulder clod. I guess I'll slice it. I won't pull it. And like I said in the previous video, I seasoned it with jerk. That's really tasty. You want to try something like this. It's not typical to think about putting jerk on beef, but that came out really good. You might want to give that a try.